Hi, welcome to our project. We're going to leverage Microsoft's amazing Azure Document DB by creating an object document mapper for GraphQL. So why do this? For our customers, of course. We want to make sure our customers have the best experience ever. But sometimes that means our UX developers end up building something using data shaped differently than the way it's stored in the database. And that also means that our service developers end up sometimes building something complicated in order to make sure that UX developer gets data in the shape that it needs, but still able to be stored in the database the way the database needs. But would it be nice if there was a better way? Well, that's what we're trying to do. So you may not be familiar with GraphQL, but you might be familiar with REST. In REST, there's an endpoint, and there's going to be an object that gets returned. And as your application progresses, you might add features, and you realize you need more additional information like the count of likes or an array of posts. But you don't want to reconfigure your existing endpoint because you don't want to break, services for other clients that are still using it. So you might spin up a new endpoint. And this is one example, but there's many reasons why you might spin up endpoints and have to create a lot of endpoints. And if that's the case, you probably don't want to do that, and you might want to look into another solution. GraphQL is one possible solution. Here we have one endpoint where we pass in a query, in this case name, age, and location, and you might notice the structure is very similar to what the response will look like, which comes from JSON. And if I need to add additional information that I need back, like the count of likes, I can add that in there and it'll come right back. And if I need to remove items, like location is no longer necessary, I can remove it. It will no longer query for that information. So what are we building? Well, we're building an Azure Document DB GraphQL Object Document Mapper, which I'll refer to as ODM. And I'll explain a little bit more about what that is. Why are we building it? Well, we want to help Microsoft attract more developers to use Azure Document DB. And the GraphQL community is a group of developers that is growing rather quickly. So we can see now that GraphQL can be very valuable in certain circumstances. And we already knew Document DB was awesome, so how do we get these two to communicate without having to build a lot of code to handle mapping? Well, that's where ODM comes in. It's going to take your Document DB schema and convert it into a GraphQL schema, which now allows your GraphQL service to query from your Document DB database. Now, since you're not spending all that time configuring mappers and spinning up new endpoints, you can focus now on your features. So enjoy!